I want to show a little bit of, and I'll make sure the link is in the show description because this is a great presentation that she gives on her book. And I want to start right here. And this is why I got the thumbnail. And I think where I'm starting it, there's enough, you won't miss too much context, but she's using Kerry Washington to introduce us to the concept of her that Edwards employs here of imperial grammars of blackness, the way that empire uses black suffering and symbolism to advance itself. All right, so I think we can pick it up right here for a few minutes. And again, this is Dr. Erica Edwards presenting on her work.
Okay, so I thought we would start here with a moment from current events. So at the 2024 Democratic National Convention, Kerry Washington appeared with her Scandal co-star Tony Goldwyn, both of whom became more famous than they already were when they starred in the Shonda Rhimes series Scandal. And Kerry Washington briefly reprised her role as a Washington fixer. So this is what she said in her speech at the convention. But I'm not here tonight as an actor. I'm here as a mother, a daughter, a proud union member, the granddaughter of immigrants, and a Black woman descended from enslaved people. I am here tonight because I am an American and I am a voter. I am the one standing on this stage, but I am not the lead character in this story. You are the fixers, dare I say it, you are the Olivia Popes. So I wanted to start there because there are two kind of serious moments in my book when I talk about Kerry Washington. One, when she appears at the end of Spike Lee's Black World War II film. She appears to sort of save the day, right? She comes in as a powerful corporate lawyer who like emasculates the judge who is getting ready to sentence this Black Puerto Rican veteran. The other moment I analyze is when Kerry Washington appears as Olivia Pope in the Shonda Rhimes series Scandal, a series in which Olivia Pope's affair with the Republican president helps save the Union again and again. But there's a third moment that when I write about Kerry Washington in a more oblique way, when I refer to her role in Save the Last Dance, a film where she showed up as the foil to the protagonist, Sarah, played by Julia Stiles. So in that film, Washington plays a gritty single mother from the South Side of Chicago who wears her hair short and natural-ish and helps teach the white girl how to do hip hop dance. So since the book has been in print, I've always felt embarrassed about this one paragraph. Like maybe it was too indulgent. Like maybe this is where the book got away from me. Like this is where I was just doing a little bit too much. So here's what I wrote. The teenage dance film might be the version of the interracial war film made just for people like you. People who became Coco or Leroy each time you hopped up on the sofa with your sister and your cousin from Cleveland. The three of you belting your hearts out while learning to fly and perhaps living forever. You eventually settled for latecomers to the genre like Save the Last Dance. If nothing else, because the Black South Side high schoolers teaching the white girl to dance were teaching your ass something too. Imagine your surprise when the miracle you so needed then grows up to be the miracle that can only be aggressively disbelieved now. So this is the paragraph that leads into my reading of the Spike Lee film, Miracle at St. Anna, a war film. So revisiting this sort of embarrassing moment in my text now, I can see that what I was trying to make sense of is representation and betrayal, right? I was trying to make sense of how it is that Black women play lots of different kinds of roles within imperial culture. And what I mean by imperial culture is the um, expressive culture, the literature and film and music that emerge, the expressive culture that emerges both within and in conflict with a nation state defined by its expansionist tendency. So, how it is that Black women play multiple roles within imperial culture, and that those roles are always shifting between fidelity to some imagined Black community and fidelity to some imagined national community, which is to say, every appearance of the Black woman on the national stage is an act of betrayal of some sort. And I was trying to think through that. So, as
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, because to me, when I hear that,
now listen, that's called my boy.
let's rewind that just a second there for a second.
So, how it is that Black women play multiple roles within imperial culture, and that those roles are always shifting between fidelity to some imagined Black community and fidelity to some imagined national community, which is to say, every appearance of the Black woman on the national stage is an act of betrayal of some sort. And I was trying to think through that. So, as someone who deals with histories of the present, it's hard not to feel some kind of like sick satisfaction when things like this happen, right? Like when what I wrote about in my book comes into such absurd articulation in the world itself. When a Black woman runs for president and she is endorsed by a Black woman who played the Black woman who saved American democracy by stealing an election, and becoming the mistress of the white president she helped put in office. When an actor cosplaying as the fixer character she played is urging us to fix American democracy by voting for someone who looks like us. An actor casting us in the role of fixer, urging us to make our voices count in a moment when we are losing sleep, when we are losing our jobs, protesting a genocidal campaign or another cop city. So, the question that I think I'd like for us to focus on in this teaching is.
All right, so let me pause it here for a second, because I just wanted to play a little that initial setup. Um and maybe Zenzi is pointing out here that I've pointing to the fact that I haven't done Edwards. I haven't set this up properly. So, because I thought in my notes here tell me that she explains the point that I wanted her to make, that I hear her making in that clip on her own, but I didn't. Maybe what I understand her to be saying, and so it's not. I'm sorry. Let me pull that question back up. Zenzi's asking, is she saying that that only happens when sisters play the roles? Because I'm seriously confused. No, she's so in one part, yes, because Edward's book is talking specifically about the particular impact and use of Black women by empire to use their presence to symbolically act as a counterinsurgency against Black radicalism. And she points that is so Edwards, but what Edwards is more broadly doing, and this is where I didn't probably set this up properly. What she's saying, what I understand her to be saying in her book, is she's saying, listen, especially after 9/11, there has been, and she breaks it down, and I have it, I did have that part sectioned off where the graphic at minute 37. So let me pull it up here, and I think this will help. So at minute 37, she puts on screen this graphic here. I think this should expand. No, it's the same one. So this is an sort of the overview that she's working from in the book. That from 1968 to 1980, there was a particular, as she says here, post 1960s counterinsurgency figure of the terrorist surveillance and policing. There was a particular approach to discussing popularly, nationally, uh, what is terrorism, what is surveillance, what is policing, and there was an initial invitation of blackness into that experience, projecting into that experience. From 1980 to 2001, as she says, there was the New World Order, the rise of the new right wing, the war on drugs, militarization of law enforcement, anti Arab, anti Muslim racial panics, and a high neoliberalism on the rise. So now, in the context of what we were talking about earlier, and the way I would use this in my work and in maybe in classrooms, et cetera, and definitely when we talk about, because we're going to use her work later in the semester in my propaganda course, as I call it, is that this is the process of settler colonialism or internal colonialism or colonialism playing out. That as the settler colonial experience shifts, evolves, uh, uh, rebrands itself in terms of what's in response to internal insurgent political movements and those happening around the world, there needs to be a sort of a new way to engage those meaning to be ruled, those meaning to be colonized. So Edward starts to talk about black women becoming more prominent in both politically leading the state. So in the 2001 to 2012 new racial domain era that she's talking about, that is Edwards, she's talking about this is where you get a new rise of the Condoleezza Rices, the Barack Obamas, the Colin Powells in the political spaces. And in the pop cultural spaces, you get the Olivia Popes and the I'm forgetting the other examples that she's using, but you get all of them. And then she's talking about that's where she's talking about in that clip there. So wait a minute, as the country itself is becoming uh falsely post-racial. She talks a little bit about her own experience with the hopes that she had at one point for Barack Obama and all of that. But and as this new racial domain takes over and the new racialization of Islam takes over, you have an increase in black women playing a role in supporting all of that. So Olivia Pope's role in Scandal is to through her, as Edward says, through her affair with the president, save the country, to save empire. Her job is to be a fixer for empire. Her role in that Save the Last Dance film is to be a fixer for white empire, just through the element of teaching dance. So that's why I'm saying that to me, it's Edwards versus Halliday, because Halliday and Chambers in them are saying, no, the more black women step into these spaces, the more they positively complicate the discussion and the politics of the country. And as I'm reading and understanding Edwards, she's saying, no, this is not what's happening. They're being used to as counterinsurgency to aid the state. And that's what she means when she's talking about imperial grammars of blackness. So in fact, I'll back it up here to where she's talking about Colin Powell and the miraculous me. The imperial grammars of blackness, the use of black language, music, performance, visual codes, and gestures to link U.S. violence abroad to the signs of multicultural progress at home. So I had been using Christopher Mott's woke imperialism, but I'd much prefer to use a black woman's framing here of imperial grammars of blackness. That specifically black suffering and performance is simultaneously all being used to justify and uh, uh, and to again to promote as progress and multicultural progress at home, when it's imperial violence, it's colonization, abroad and at home. So and good, Zenzi. I hope that did clarify. And sorry if I wasn't, And that's what I'm saying. Like, to be fair, like all of the stuff I've referenced, all of it needs more organization and presentation and study from all of us, and that's ultimately what I'm encouraging. And it's and anyway, but let me see if I got the timestamp right here, where she talks a little bit about. And now I haven't read the part of the book that she mentioned there because I like that Spike Lee movie, The Miracle at St. Anna. It's one of the few more recent Spike Lee, more modern contemporary Spike Lee films, later Spike Lee films that I actually liked at all. So I'm very interested to see what she says about that. But
Affirmed Black representation as the sign of enlightenment with political figures like Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell and the Obamas announcing the nation's fitness as a world leader in multicultural democracy. So, like at his confirmation hearing, for example, Colin Powell referred to himself as like miraculous me, right? And said that his appointment as Secretary of State would show to the world what is possible in this country, right? So, Black representation as a kind of key feature of empire building, a key rationalization of empire building, that meaning a kind of strategy for making sense of and making the case for empire building. I think it's really important that we bring clarity to the term empire. Sometimes we use the term almost cartoonishly, like we're talking about, superheroes fighting against evil, or we're talking about the Sith Lords in Star Wars, like the evil empire. Empire is not just like everything bad, right? Empire is a specific mode of power that operates through the logic of annexation and attachment, expansion and settling, right? So the form that imperialism took through the late post-war decades, right? And I mean post-World War II decades, was globalization, right? The construction of what was called a new world order, the building of an unfettered economy that demanded political and cultural rationalities to build consent, right? To make people believe that was the right mode of governance.
Again, golly, that is.
Now listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that.
So that's why I'm saying it's for me, Edwards versus these others, because she's showing, and already in what I've read, she's making the case very strongly, and she does a good job of laying it out in this video. That again, first of all, considering what we were talking about earlier around the definitions of colonialism, this is very helpful what she just said right here, because we ended with Hein talking about we need a better understanding of imperialism to which will help us in our studies of colonization, whatever form. Edwards is saying something very similar here. If we understand what empire is, as I said earlier, we understand it doesn't create democracies, it creates colonies, and it creates a different set of relationships that are not democratic and based on freedom and liberty and all this other kind of stuff and equality. It's something else. And she just said right there what has been ultimately my point, that the broader process of European imperialism, particularly over the last 500 years, necessitates an understanding that it's going to take various forms, all of which are better understood under whatever variant of colonialism you want to call it. But that's the form. She just said there, whether it's settler or this, it's like the whole point is empire. She said it goes back and forth between attachment and how did she phrase it just there? But of how did she put it? She had it working dialectically, that it's about them over there, but it's also about attaching oneself to. It's about settling. It's about in other words, whatever the form is, the goal is empire and imperialism. So when she's talking about over this effort of counterinsurgency over the last, particularly 50, 60 years, that's why I have to say it's versus these other scholars who are saying, no, because within that there has been this inclusivity and this advance and progress that Black people have made, and even improvement over the in terms of the country. We've improved the country by becoming more involved in it. And as I'm hearing and reading Edwards, she's saying, no. These are imperial grammars. And then what she says here, let me move it a little. What she says here about Black women and security is very dope as well. So let me just move it to about right here.
Emerge in our own public life, right? Like I'm thinking about how in Kamala Harris's convention speech, she told the story of her childhood friend, a girl named Wanda, who was being sexually abused. And that's what inspired Harris to become a prosecutor to, keep women safe, right? So the imperial grammars of Blackness tie Black women's achievement to protection and also to danger, right? So we see how the increased representation of Black women in public places and in public positions became necessary for the industries and the image of crisis management and national security and counterterrorism. So between the Cold War and the 2000s, so between 1989 and like the post 9/11 moment, we saw this alignment of Blackness and security. It was during this time that popular culture made over old tropes, like the old tropes of Black femininity, like Jezebel and Mammy. Like popular culture still had use for those symbols and images, but it layered over them with new symbologies, or what I call in the book, new Black femininities. It was in this context when Black women were made over into the image of protectors. It was in this context that Kerry Washington became the first Black woman to star in an hour-long network series with Scandal, right? So we might see that as the culmination of this successful, agential, protective, professional Black femininity at the center of police power and juridical prowess.
That's the emphasis for me, not what positives did this all play in advancing the country, or as Jeff Chang, I mean, my homeboy Davey D at one point was saying, hip hop paved the way to prepare the country for a Black president and all that kind of stuff. Like, look, I ended my notes here by saying, I'm saying that pop culture is meant to be the negation of the negation.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.